It's an honor to stand up here and be part of this incredible musical community, and I want to take a few moments to just talk at you and pretend like I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I could just confess to you all right now that I definitely, absolutely, positively, unquestionably do not. In fact, I'm not sure why I'm here or how I ended up on this stage. I think somebody overestimated my ability to think. I definitely overestimated my ability to read, so. But either way, when I figured out I was going to have to give this speech, I knew I had to write something down. I got a really good memory, it's just kind of short. And, but it's great to be at IBMA here in beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I missed the last few years back in Raleigh, but only because I've been out on the dusty old trail, spreading the good word of the bluegrass gospel as far and as wide as I can. The last several years has been quite a whirlwind for me, and I never imagined the incredible places this music would take me and the lessons I'd learn and the people that I'd meet along the way. As far back as my memory goes, bluegrass music has been one of the main guiding forces that shaped me into the man that I am today. Growing up immersed in this music has been one of the best experiences of my entire life. As a child, I witnessed all the joy that a Martin guitar could bring when it's in the right hands and the B strings in tune. I saw the smiles on the jolly faces all around the table as my father played in the kitchen of our little trailer up there in Michigan, or next to a campfire somewhere along the Stony Creek, singing songs he learned from legends like Doc and Merle, Lester and Earl, Stanley Brothers, Jimmy Martin, Larry Sparks, and the Osborne Brothers till his face was beet red. His music brought people together, and I knew way back then that's what I wanted to do. My first guitar was a little plastic toy about this big, and it had buttons all down the fretboard, neon-colored buttons, and it was supposed to play tunes when you pressed them, but I never had batteries. Instead, my dad gave me a pick, and I scratched on the little the plastic ridges that covered the sound hole there, and I would just scratch on that, and got my right hand going, and eventually I graduated up into a little house brand guitar named Norma. We found it at an antique store. And I remember when I turned the corner of that old store, the lights were shining down that guitar like heavenly rays from above, and I just threw a fit, and I needed to have it. My dad took his last little 30 bucks that he had to his name and spent it on that guitar, and we took it home, and he taught me G, C, and D, and he gave me a capo. And from then on, after learning those chords, I could play Long Journey Home, and I could play Mountain Dew and Cripple Creek, and riding that midnight train. And for the next few years, that's what I did. I played rhythm. My dad did all the fancy picking and singing, and that gave me a chance to just sit back and listen. And that was really foundational for my own musical upbringing. While I was sitting back there playing rhythm, I was hearing the vocal harmonies and studying subliminally how they work together. I noticed on tunes like Think of What You've Done, my dad's note would say the same, but my Uncle Brad, he would slide up to his to hit that high part. And that slide up to the note was the good stuff. That bend up to the note that gives you that greasy, bluesy feeling when the voices are just smashing against each other in midair. How they always followed each other, and there was just obviously some kind of secret formula or something to make this lonesome sound, but I didn't feel like it was something that could be taught. It was something I had to learn on my own, something in my soul. And my parents had a treasure trove of CDs and vinyls and tapes and stuff, and I checked those out growing up. My dad would record things like Austin City Limits and whatever was going on TNN. He had videos of Larry Sparks and Ralph Stanley and Doc and Merle, and Doc became my biggest hero. With his wavy silver hair and fingers effortlessly dancing up and down the fretboard like a frolicking feather in a gentle breeze. Another good VHS tape we had was a documentary about the history of bluegrass music called High Lonesome. It was narrated by the late, great Mac Wiseman, and it was filled with classic songs that seeped into my pores and got into my blood. I also recall one about Bill Monroe, and this film showed incredibly eerie footage of Bill walking through the dilapidated ruins of his childhood home. The house was barely standing, and it was a really sad scene, and it stuck with me throughout the years. I remember Bill talking about how he wrote on my way back to the old home when he pulled up to that old house and nobody was there. I'm on my way back to the old home, the road winds on up the hill, but there is no light in the window that shined long ago where I lived. Throughout my adolescence, I would experience my own hardships that contributed to my own melancholy, and I quickly learned that these scars and painful memories of childhood and lonesome thoughts of home are some of the main ingredients for bluegrass music. And the fortunate flip side of that is that I also learned how bluegrass music can be the only cure for those painful, everlasting memories. It can be a powerful medicine. That's probably why I never stopped playing. All through elementary school, high school, middle school, music was my best friend, my survival tactic, my coping mechanism, and it became my social currency, as it very much still is. Deep down, I've always been a bluegrass musician at heart, despite veering off into a few rock bands and heavy metal projects that didn't quite stick. I was instinctively guided back to my roots, and my electric guitar now collects dust. And I felt like what I was doing with the heavy metal bands, it was fun and everything, but it just didn't give me that deja vu that bluegrass does. It didn't give me that feeling that could make me laugh or cry or bring me back to my childhood before I knew anything dirty about the earth. I realized that bluegrass is where my heart and soul is, and from that point I decided to go back to it, and here I have stayed. As time goes on, I realize that I have a duty here to play these songs for the next generation. We gotta keep playing Whiskey Before Breakfast and Salt Creek so these youngins can learn them and pass them on. I do write my own songs, many of which aren't strictly bluegrass, but I always include traditional bluegrass tunes in my shows. I've been very fortunate to attract a diverse audience, many of which come from backgrounds outside of bluegrass altogether. My hope is that some kid comes to one of my shows somewhere and gets inspired to pick up the guitar or banjo and goes home to Google Tony Rice or Earl Scruggs. I'll never forget my first time hearing live bluegrass on a band. It was at Charlotte Bluegrass Festival up in Michigan. I was probably 4 years old, and there was a bunch of them there, Ralph and Jim and Jesse and Sparks, and I can't remember who exactly was on stage, but I know when I saw these guys in their big suits and hats, gold-plated banjos stepping up to a 57, it was the first time I had heard three-part harmonies coming out of speakers like this. I had only heard it around the campfire next to the creek or on my back porch. Never seen these guys with their suits. Never heard that banjo coming through the speakers like that, and it changed my whole world. It was like when a little kid sees a fire truck or a police car and decides he wants to be a fireman or a police officer. I found my calling. And 28 years later, here I am. I'm still trying to do my best, and you know, I've never had to give a speech like this, and when I got asked to do it, of course I agreed. It's my honor to be here this week at IBMA, but I didn't really know what I was going to say. And then right after that, Junior Sisk hit me up and asked me if I wanted to sing a song. And that's when I realized kind of what I wanted to touch on a little bit here today is, that's the spirit. He's not afraid to have long hair up there with him. I'm gonna try to mix up the camo and the tie-dye a little bit, you know what I mean? And stir up the Nag Champa with the roll tide. Over the last decade or more, I've played a lot of shows and I've met a lot of folks, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this community and to be welcome to speak here today. But it hasn't always been this way. I remember early in my career being boxed out of many jams. I'd show up to a bluegrass festival so eager to pick with some good musicians, only to be met with a bit of resistance. I'm not sure if it's because I smelled like weed or cussed or had tattoos. I didn't feel like it was a skill thing because I felt like I could hang, but it just seemed like there was certain folks that just didn't like me. There was times when I went back to my tent and just almost in tears and just didn't, end up playing with anybody, and I just wanted to pick, and it was weird. You know, it became kind of clear to me that there was this side of the scene that I didn't belong to. And even though we were all into the same music, there was this invisible divide. I felt like if we could just sit down and talk about Bill Monroe or sing the first Whippoorwill together, that these folks might realize we got more in common than they think.
Yeah.
These experiences taught me how bad this kind of exclusion can be for the entire scene. To me, bluegrass is beautiful because of its diversity of sounds and influences. Bill took the flavors of Irish and Scottish fiddle tunes and old-time Appalachian music and lonesome Southern blues and the Western strumming of the cowboy's guitar and the flurry of jazz and the transcendent spiritual vocal of the harmonies of the church, and he mashed them up into this furious musical goulash with horsepower that matched the fast-paced and evolving world around him. We have to continue to welcome new voices whose unique perspectives and experience will enrich our collective artistic expression. We gotta allow these fresh ideas to mingle with tradition. By keeping our minds open, we'll have a more welcoming environment and make way for the whole genre to evolve and thrive. This music has branches now. The trunk of the tree is firmly planted with roots reaching down deeper and stronger than ever. And the beautiful buds on Bill's bluegrass tree are blossoming and reaching up towards the big blue sky, twisting and turning in their own natural way. I don't know about you, but I'm glad there's flowers on this tree. I see no reason to pull out the shears. I'm proud when I see my bluegrass peers out on big stages doing big things, like when I see Joshua Rilko and Oliver Craven out on these huge stages, or the great Seth Taylor out there playing stadiums with Post Malone, or Brian Sutton being on every huge country recording that's coming out of Nashville. I think as bluegrassers, we can sometimes act like crabs in a bucket, trying to pull each other back down, scared to lose our polite, perfect little poster children to the evil clutches of success. But this music will inevitably grow, and we should continue to spread the word as far as we can, because this is a true American art form that deserves so much more from the general population than a simplistic portrayal of country living. It deserves more than a stereotypical image of a banjo player in overalls with a piece of weed hanging out of his mouth. It is a richly nuanced and sophisticated genre that demands incredible skill and artistry from its musicians and has a strong commitment to musical excellence and deep cultural roots. It's the thread that weaves us all together, regardless of where we come from or how we play. It's about family and friends. It's about community. It's about tradition. I hope that we can all embrace the new artists coming into the fold and to make space for folks that are different. Together we can foster a rich tapestry of talent that continues to honor our roots while welcoming innovation. I'm proud to be a bluegrasser, and I'm proud to do my part to carry the tradition forward and share these songs with the next generation. And for crying out loud, nominate Jared Walker for Mandolin Player of the Year.